We are live, I think. Yes. So I pull the comments up here. And Jack, you should be able to see the comments too. I think the
Okay.
way this is laid out, there's like a sidebar there. You may have to click, there's a button to the right. Has comments. That you might have to see it, but nothing showed
I
up yet. But
so
we'll give it
need
a minute.
glasses.
Yeah, I just signed up for a new eyeglass exam. It's been 2 years, so about that
Oh
time.
man, I can't even remember the last time I had one. It's that bad.
Well, what was it? A year ago was the first time they're like, you're at the age now, you might want to consider progressive lenses. And I'm like, what does that mean? They're like, that's what old people call bifocals. I'm like, damn you, all to
Yeah,
hell.
yeah. Oh yeah, it's real cool. I started getting stuff from AARP,
Oh well, yeah. Jenna,
and I'm like, hey, easy.
Jenna's a few months older than me, so she got that earlier. So we've been kind of chuckling about that. And
Yeah, that's great fun. Great
yeah,
fun.
yeah, it's when you finally arrive to that you can't even hide from there. So, anyways,
Right.
let's see, we've got some people here. So I'm Scott with Jenna and Scott Investigate. Everybody, hello. This is episode 6. I am here with the all great and powerful Jack Neece. She's there with us. She's a psychic medium, so this will be fun to talk about on the other side because I'm definitely more on the science, technical, geek stuff. I tend to roll my eyes at the more magical stuff, but I also, being with Jenna, know that yeah, there's shit out there and it'll make you go, wow. So,
Yeah.
I'm not one of those. It's like, oh, it's all a bunch of mumbo jumbo or anything like that. For you out there, we've worked with Jack before. One time, definitely there's a video out on our site at Middle Point. I think that was
Oh
the time when Doogie was there in September, and we could talk about
man.
that. But that was kind of a wild time because I think that might have been the first time I saw you kind of do your thing, and it was like, wow, okay, yeah, now I'm intrigued. I, that's something I can't explain. That's really cool. Hey, what's up, Derek? How's it going? Hey, Carmel, how are you? Um, so yeah, here we are. So this is the second episode of 2021. Where Jenna, this was Jenna's idea. She's like, you should get people on to talk so you don't have to talk. I'm like, what? You don't like the way I could? She's like, no, you'll just go off on tangents and start talking about comics and music and farts and
Oh god,
everything else. And
it was so funny. I told Nicole, my girlfriend, that I was going to do this, and she's like, "Okay, don't talk about this. Don't talk about that." Like, I know.
no, I told Phil last week. I'm like, dude, I don't got an agenda. I said we'll just get on here and we'll see where it goes. We'll talk about each other's teams and kind of what we do, and we'll just wing it. I don't know. But anyways, so if you want to take a minute to tell everybody who you are, what you do. I mean, we talked a little bit offline before. Apparently, um, a lot of people with 2020 were like, that year sucks, all to hell. Can't wait for 2021. You were kind of like 2021, that's nothing. 2021, hold my beer, but in a good way. So tell
You know
everybody
what?
what you guys are doing.
It's so
We
funny.
need some positivity.
Oh no, it's crazy. Like 2020, like January of 2020, I launched this well, nobody heard about it because I tried to launch it and then COVID stomped all over it.
Sure.
But I was like 2020 vision, and we're going to do all of this. And, I had literally the entire year planned for events. I was going to do, big speaking events for me, teaching events. And then COVID hit, and I just kind of went, okay, well, that was fun.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny, 2020 put me in a place where I didn't necessarily want to be, but I needed to be. Like I was
Sure.
going through a lot of stuff, with my kids, and just my life kind of went nuts. And 2020 gave me the opportunity to really look at my life and what do I want? How do I be productive? And 2021 came around and I was like, you know what? We've had a year off. My girlfriend and I were actually talking about it, and I almost feel bad because I have done so much with the time, and I've had so much positivity, and I've made some really awesome connections with people. And I think that people sitting in their home, not knowing what to do, has finally pushed a lot of people kind of over that cliff to call me,
Yeah.
and I've had amazing conversations. I started working with a new group called Blue Paranormal, which they're phenomenal. I've been to some of the most amazing locations, and these places are like, I did a weekend. We did 3 locations in one weekend,
Oh,
and it was
wow.
amazing. So
That's a
I
lot. Well, how close were the locations? Were they close?
from where I'm at, about an hour and a half ish.
Okay. Yeah,
But
three in a weekend's a lot.
well, they were really close to each other, but about an hour and a half, and there were overnight locations, and it
Okay.
was just we had so much fun, and it's taught me this year, well, last year has taught me a lot about perspective and trying to keep your head together when everything else seems to be falling on top of it. And yeah, it's been hard, and we've had some really hard times, and we've managed to get through it through perspective and through positive energy. And we launched multiple things anyway, and we found different avenues, and we're kind of working around what's going on right now. So
Yeah.
I've been very blessed, very lucky. I know a lot of people can't say that, and that's kind of why I don't want to like brag on myself, but it's like
Mm.
we've gotten really lucky and just pushed through it. And I'm like, I'm a Taurus, so I don't get stopped very easily. And I'm pretty grateful for that. Like, I'm super hard headed, and when I finally make the decision to do something, I'm gonna do it. Like, I don't care
Right.
what's happening. I'm gonna do it.
It's perseverance, man. That's what you got to do. And no, I think it's great to have such a positive outlook with everything going on because, like you said, I've kind of been in the same boat where, you know, the whole COVID thing's been more of a nuisance than a life changer. As far as I've been blessed to be able to still be employed and work from home, as has Jenna. But I know there's a lot of people, friends of ours, and that aren't so lucky. So to you, it's like part of me is like, yeah, the year kind of sucked. I couldn't go to concerts and I couldn't do stuff like that. But in the grand scheme of things, that's not that big of a deal compared to some people. But yeah, there is a part of me that kind of feels guilty about that. But on the same token, I think it's good to be able to show these kind of stories to show that, hey, you know, we're still getting things done. There's things out there. There is positive stuff. We're moving forward because it's crazy right now with everything going on.
It
So
is absolutely crazy. And like I said, I it was kind of a practice what you preach here for me, because when I sit down and have a session with somebody, oh, Derek, thank you.
yeah, that
That is
was
so sweet. Um, when I sit down and have a session, or just even talking to somebody, I preach perspective all the time. And I'm like, you can damn yourself or you can bless yourself, given your own perspective. And I had to really focus on that because I went through an insurance thing and all of my medical got pulled. And I was in a really dark place for a while. And coming out of it wasn't easy, but I still am like, okay, I'm not gonna let this take me down.
right.
And I walked very, very long on telling people, you got to pick yourself up by the bootstraps and put your big girl panties on. And,
Yeah.
you know, I kind of slacked in my own life in that area.
It's,
And
it's
then here
easy.
I
It's
am.
easy to tell other people that,
Oh,
right? And it's like
yeah,
shit or get off the pot. But
yeah,
yeah. Then with your
you,
own, it's kind of like,
yeah. And
yeah.
then when, the mirror is turned around, you're like,
Mhm.
oh, damn, but it's made me a stronger person, man. I'm going forward with like everything I can. And I'm just kind of giving it to the universe, man. I'm like, hey, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I'll do something else.
Right.
I
Right.
feel more motivated this year than I think I ever have in my life. I'm in a better place. I'm starting to dip into dreams I had when I was 15 years old.
That's
Like,
cool.
that's amazing for me. Things I'd let go of, things I never thought was going to happen are
Hmm.
happening.
It's easy to do as you get older. You have all these
Yes.
dreams and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, and then life, kids, professions,
Oh my God.
career, hardships, you name it. All the stuff that hits you. After a while, you're just kind of like, and then yeah. So then you get, yeah, I feel like it's peaks and valleys, and it's like I finally got a point in
Absolutely.
my life where I'm just like, um, I'm blessed to be where I'm at. Um, Jen and I are able to kind of do the paranormal thing kind of as our hobby, if you will.
Yeah.
And I do music and stuff like that. And it's like I do it for me. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like the delusions of grandeur of the years before when I was going to grow up and be a rock star and go on
Yeah.
tour and all this
Oh,
stuff.
yeah.
I'm like, No, now it's like, my goals are, hey, if I can go in the basement with some buddies of mine and jam and come up with something, then hey, that's great. So it's
Yeah,
it's all about setting your goals.
that my girlfriend just set up the drum set
Hey, what's
in
up,
the
Eric?
garage, and
Yeah.
she bought one of those silencer kits for it. So like she
Okay.
has a blast with that, and it's like
Yeah.
it's kind of where we're at. We're like we're doing things for us now, and it's really cool to see us branch out into our own things and together. It's just
Yeah.
yeah, and definitely being 41 plays a big part in that because everyone's like, oh, if you don't make it by the time you're 30, blah blah blah.
Oh well,
You
shit.
know,
Then I'm screwed. Then.
I don't know what it was about being a kid, but I really thought like, oh, I'm not gonna worry about it. When I turn 30, there's gonna be this magical knock on my door, and there's gonna be some dude with like keys and a career. Like
Yeah.
it's cool,
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I'm 35, going, oh shit.
Yeah, unfortunately, at least in my experience, if you want something, you got to go out and find it and get it. You're rarely in a situation that falls in your lap. It's
Yeah,
like there's rarely that door knock on the door goes, "Oh, hey, Jack, we heard you're doing this. Come do this for us."
yeah, no,
That rarely happens anymore. Uh, so yeah, why don't
no.
you tell people we talked offline. You said you were starting new businesses and things like that. So go ahead and plug all that stuff. And I mean, we talked about you were doing jewelry and things like that. So yeah, talk about that for a minute.
So I started out here well, actually, I started in Ohio and kind of came out, if you will, as a psychic medium. I've been doing readings and kind of felt that was my end all. That's where I was going to end up. As I said earlier, 2020 kind of blew everything I thought I wanted out of the water. And I love crystals. I am fascinated. Kenna Hunter got me obsessed with crystals, which I had my few that I liked. And then a friend of mine showed me how to wrap, just a simple wrap on a crystal. And I'm like, oh my God, I love doing this.
I'm so glad you clarified that because I was like a medium that raps. I'm there for that. I mean, if you're over there doing some Two Live Crew or something as you're doing crystals and stuff, that would be
Maybe out
awesome.
there,
That
maybe out there.
there's a niche there for you. You got something there. You can have that idea. That's a free one. There you go.
Yeah, okay, hey, maybe third career.
Yeah, when you're doing your
When I do my
readings, you could
seminars.
wrap them. You should wrap
Yeah,
them. Yeah, you
yeah,
should do it that
totally,
way. There you
totally.
go. Yeah.
I mean, I do write. I feel like it's, anyway.
Sorry,
But no, so
I
rapid
should have warned you
fire
about that.
around the crystals.
Yeah.
But we went to, the friend of mine had a shop or had a consignment deal with a shop in Fort Wayne. And I went down there and within 2 days had my own contract and started wrapping crystals. Well, I also make, I call it set your intuition. So it's a line of candles, bath salts, and body rollers for setting your intention for prosperity, healing, and protection. So I feel like it's three basic things that everybody needs. And it's just, everybody has their way that they do spells, if you want to call it that, whether it's prayer, whether it's spell work, whether it's meditation, whatever it is, you're trying to set your mind and your body and your spirit to a certain goal. And these products help you do that. There's, the body roller throughout the day, the candle that you light in the house. And I like that as kind of a subconscious reminder of the intention that you set. And then you have your bath salts at night that I've worked really hard on. It's a lot of stuff that I've used over the years. 26 years teaches you a lot. And I've managed to put all that together into the Set Your Intuition line, and I'm in love with it. Of course, I am. It's mine. But
You better be.
yeah, right.
You're not
No,
just the
but
spokesman. You're not just a customer. You're the spokesman.
right. No, I am a witch and I play one on TV.
Right.
But no, seriously, it's just, I want to help people. Like I want to get out there. I want to get my things in houses to help people. Like I got in trouble because I gave a lot of it away. But, this is kind of what we're doing this year. We're, all of our things are at Phase Cabinet, which is phenomenal. Like I said, Fort Wayne, love them. But yeah, I'm actually I made a pair of earrings today to go with the set. Like, so I'm branching out into whatever, because I believe if you want something in your home, you want something for other people, you've got to be that. So
Well,
that's kind of what I'm doing now.
that's
I'm doing
cool.
a little bit of everything. Still doing reading, still teaching, oh, still rapping, still all kind of, well, wire rapping.
Yeah, we figured, hey, I can only do the joke once. Otherwise, Jen will come in here and be like, really? Just
Yeah,
stop. Just
yeah. Okay, good.
hashtag dad jokes or whatever. Yeah.
Oh God, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
We love those around here.
But no, that's awesome. That's awesome that you got all that going on. So yeah. So for those of you watching, we're going to be hitting up Post Town Elementary, which is just north of Middletown. Jack's going to be joining us, so this will be fun. Um, I think the last time we worked with Jack was at Middle Point School. What was that, like 2 Septembers ago?
Oh God, it
I'm
was.
losing track of it. This whole COVID thing,
Me
man, it's
too.
like things feel like they were a year, 2 years ago, and they were weeks ago, and then vice
Yep.
versa. It's like I just
I'm
can't,
glad it's not just me, man. I've had that same problem. Like that was like 6 years ago.
dude. And then
Like,
the time changed, and it seemed like when the time changed and everything, it seemed like usually it's like a week, and then you get used to it, and it just seemed like it was a month. 2 months going on. I'm just like, when the hell? When did it start
yeah.
getting dark at 4 o'clock in the afternoon? And it was just crazy. So
Oh
it's
yeah,
like,
like 6 o'clock. I'm ready for bed. I'm like,
yeah,
it's like
yeah.
11 o'clock. No, 6:30. Great.
Well, you
Yeah.
are 41. I mean, that's the bedtime for a 41-year-old. It's like
Thanks.
4 o'clock. It's
Thanks.
I was 41 once. Anyways, so
Anyway,
yeah, so we're going to be going to Post Town Elementary next Saturday. I believe it's the 16th. I don't have a calendar in front of me,
yes,
but I think that
yes.
sounds right. And then, so for those of you on here that don't know Post Town Elementary, it's a school, and it's about a mile north of Middletown. So we're based out of Cincinnati, Ohio. So it's about a half-hour trip for us. It's in southwestern Ohio. Um, just real quick, the history of the school: it was built in 1937. I'm reading this, so let me go through here. It was built in 1937, um, and I think it hung around. Was it till the 70s? But the biggest significance there's not like a lot of stuff as far as like teachers that died or students that died or any kind of stuff like that. But prior to the school being built, that land um, there was several of the railroads had tracks through that area, and there was a really bad train accident. I want to say that was in. Hang on. See, I should be more prepared. This is why I need a producer. I need a Robin Gibbons. Um,
Wow, you are old.
yeah, I know, right?
You just totally
Um,
dated yourself.
oh, yeah, that's the first one. You wait. Yeah,
Well, of
when
course,
you,
I
you
knew that. So,
well,
whoops.
yeah, you're a little bit younger than me. Okay, it was July 4th, 1910. Was when the train accident. Let's see what. Yeah, it was ran off schedule after a detour. There was all the passengers in two cars closest to the engine either died or were seriously injured. There was 19 deaths at the scene of the accident. So the significance of this was there was no hospitals close by or anything like that. So all the victims and the people, they literally brought them to the land where the school is where they did the triage on them. So there's potentially that going on as far as, there was a lot of deaths there prior. So that. But as far as I've been able to see, there's not a lot of stuff as far as that went on at the school itself, besides it just being a school and the land it was on. But I haven't done a lot of research as far as, and we talked about this before. I kind of like to go into these places cold as far as, um, you know, oh, there's a dark shadow on floor 4, and there's
Yeah,
room number 377 has this and that. I feel like that kind of plants suggestions in your mind, so that
exactly.
you're a lot more it's a lot more subjective, or it's more suggestive to you. So I like to go into that, and then if something happens and I go, hey, I was in room 377, they're like, oh yep, that's the one.
We know
Then
that room.
that kind of,
Yeah,
yeah,
I
versus it being
totally
the other way
agree.
around. So yeah, so I'm excited. Like I said, we went there a couple years ago, but it was a public hunt. and it was more in it being kind of like a tour. We spent a little bit of time, but you know how public tours are. People get in there, and it's hard to do EVPs or do any real kind of
Yeah.
thorough investigations in that. But yeah, it's a pretty well known place in this neck of the woods. Um, a lot of the teams that we run around with and know have been there, and there's been a lot of good stuff there, and we like the people that own it. So yeah, looking forward to
That
it.
helps.
That'll be a good time. Yeah, yeah, it'll be a good time. Plus, it's for us. It's close to home. I mean, a lot of the places that we tend to go to, um, aren't. They're like 2.5, 3 hours, 4 hours. Which I told Jenna, I said, after a ghost hunt, getting done 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, and I know I'm an early timer because it's like I think some people are like, that's early. You should be going till 4 or 6 in the morning. I'm like, dude, I'm too old for that. Plus, I got to drive home. But that's what I'm getting to. It's like,
Yeah,
especially COVID, it's like you can't even find a Waffle House that's open anymore. But
seriously.
but yeah, just try. My limit's about a 2 hour drive home. Otherwise, I tend to nod. I've only nodded off once, and probably shouldn't even tell this story. And I didn't even know I did it. And luckily, Jenna was with me, and it only happened for like a second.
Oh
But
God.
that was terrifying because like I always figured if it ever happened, I'd kind of know I'm getting tired, and you start, turning the AC on and you got the
Right.
radio blaring, and pinching yourself or whatever the case may be. Now I'm just cruising along, and next thing I know, I'm like someplace else. I was like
Oh
sitting on a
no.
couch somewhere watching TV, and then Jenna said she felt like she was in the passenger seat. Luckily, she hadn't fallen asleep yet. And she said she felt the car kind of veer a little bit, and it woke her as she came up and she saw it. I was like, so yeah,
Oh my God.
we did that, and I was like, never again, never again. We're not gonna
Yeah,
do that.
bad time
So
to take a nap, man.
yeah, that only happened once. That's all I need. So yeah, yeah. So what's
Well, the farthest we've ever gone for an event was 9 hours, 9.5 hours to Penhurst. And that place is my baby. I love it. I've been there twice. And the second time we went, both times we went, we had full access to the buildings that we had access to all by ourselves.
yep,
So it was amazing. And that place I went in blind. And it was funny like I told you, I used to be with another group, and I would tell this group, like, I'm a tool, use me. And then, I
yeah,
realized how that sound, quit saying it. And then,
yeah. You don't want to put that. Don't put that on a shirt. Don't be like
no,
Jack Nee, psychic medium
no.
on the back. I'm a tool. Use me. I mean, it's catchy. But,
I imagine the
yeah.
unwanted attention that may come my way. But no, I actually had a handler back then, and we used to joke because you'll see it at Post Town. If I get something, like I can't help myself, I just go. I'll be like, oh my God, this is happening, and just go. And at Penhurst, I went in completely blind, which that place is insane. And we probably had more happen there than any location, with the exception of Whispers, which I won't go back there.
Ooh.
But
Are you going to
yeah,
talk? Can we talk about that, or
oh
is it
God,
that crazy? If you don't want to talk about it, we don't have to. But
no,
you
it's
just you put it
fine.
out there, so it's like
Yeah, the minute I said it, I was like,
she
oh,
won't. I won't ever go back there. It's like now it might be I won't ever go back there because there was lots of spiders. That would be like what
mm-mm.
Jenna would say. And for me, it'd be
Oh
like,
no,
nope,
I'm
I
the type.
saw a snake. I'm out. But
Oh no, I'm the type, like, I'll get down on the ground, and like
yeah,
with child spirits, I like to be down low, so I'm a big scary red being. So I like to kind of, make myself small if I can. But no, oh my God. Okay, so we went to Whispers, and we go in, we set up, how you always have your little base camp. So we set that up and everything. We've got all our snacks, and we're all kind of sitting around talking. And the two women that did the tour there were like, okay, you can't have any sage, no cleansing, no banishing, no da 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 da. And I'm like, wow, okay, there's a lot of rules. I've never really, pretty much every other place was like, hey, don't break anything and don't paint on the walls. Go.
yeah, yeah.
So we go into this place, and I'm like, okay, I get it. It was a house. I hadn't been in a house before. So we walk into the foyer, and there's 3 Ouija boards.
Hmm.
And I'm like, okay, that's kind of sketchy, but okay, only because they just told us how haunted this place was, and now there's 3 Ouija boards, and they were like encouraging us to use this. And this is telling me they've encouraged other people to use them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we were sitting in the foyer, and I don't know if it was the light grid or, and I'm a skeptic. Like it's funny because I'm a psychic medium. I do what I do, but I'm around a lot of people that are like, oh my God, I love every orb. And I'm like, probably not. You
Yeah.
know, like I just
But
do
yeah,
what I
you're in
do.
a very old, dusty house, and
Yeah.
not
And
every orb
yeah,
is
you're like,
something
oh,
supernatural. A lot of times it's
you're like, oh,
dust.
I heard a creak. Well, we're in a 200-year-old building. Yeah,
Yeah.
I bet you did. So the wall, I swear the walls started like, they were like wavy.
Mm.
And I'm like, okay, whatever. Like the lights are messing with my eyes, whatever. I didn't really think too much of it because you know how, especially with the light grid, like you stare too long at the light grid and then
Yeah.
you look away, you get that weird effect.
Mm.
So it's like, okay, that was whatever it was. And then I went up to the mirror and I swear on everything, this friggin' old woman like came at me. And I was like, okay, definitely saw that. So we go upstairs and they're telling me, like, okay, there's this one room. Don't go in that room and sit in that chair. Now, I'm the little kid that
Yeah.
if you say there's a box on the table, don't touch the
Yeah.
box. I am
Yeah.
touching that. I'm opening it. I'm
Right.
going to stick my face
Don't
in it.
touch that. It's hot. Ouch. Ouch. Ouch.
Ouch,
Ouch.
ouch, ouch. Exactly. I'll get used to it. Ouch. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
totally me.
Exactly. Exactly.
And because I've been to the places I've been to and experienced what I've experienced, like I go in the deep dark. I go in the room nobody wants to go in. I'm running for it. I'm like, yeah, I
Yeah.
want that experience. So we had a couple really cool things happen. I went up to this room and there was this little girl spirit there that was very playful. I'm like, okay, this is cool. And then I see the room with the chair. And I'm like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go sit in that chair. And
Sure.
even my guide, I'm sure you've heard other mediums talk about their guide. So
Right.
my
Right. Right.
guide was like, hey, dumbass, don't do that.
I know what you're gonna do. I know. It's stupid for me to even say anything, but
Yeah.
I have to put it out there. I couldn't be a valid guide unless I at least said this. Okay,
And
now
then he
go
kind
do
of
what you're
goes,
gonna
okay,
do.
I've done my due diligence. Go
Yes.
sit in the chair,
Yes.
idiot. So of course I go sit in the chair and the minute I sat down, everything inside me felt like it went upside down. And I stood up and I got that feeling like, ooh, I might be in over my head. And then of
Ooh.
course the other part of me was like, this is a learning experience. Don't, get back on the horse. You can get through this. So I walk around a little bit and there was this weird thing that we had on a staircase. There was like this thing running up and down the stairs, and someone in the basement saw it and I saw it. And then we talked later and realized that we were both seeing the same thing unbeknownst to each other at the time. So we're like, oh, that was really cool. Well, I went back, sat in the chair again, and I saw this. I don't even know what it was. It kind of looked like a cow skull, but it just came at me and then in me. And I got up, I ran downstairs, and I immediately threw up. That
Ooh.
has never happened to me ever. Got got up from that, cleaned myself up a little bit, and then went to stand up and it was still there. I went across the street and laid in the grass and I had to ground myself literally. Like I have never felt so just, it was like sad and lonely and evil and oh, it was just like oil slick. It was
Hmm.
so bad. In that place, I'm like, I will not go back there because we had a lot of things happen and people were just like, the ladies that ran it were kind of like, right on, that's cool. We're like, no, there's evil in here. It needs to go. And they're like, no, that's why we have this place. And
Yeah,
then
they're
I
like
started to feel,
you can fish the pond. You have to throw them back. Otherwise, we can't leave fish for anybody else. Jack, come
well,
on.
and that like I got that, but my role in it felt weird
Yeah.
because I knew what was there and I knew they didn't want to be there.
Yeah.
And then it just it
Kind of
messed
like
with my head.
if you were dealing with living people.
Yes.
And they were
Well, and
like
that's the thing.
being, if they were being locked in a chamber somewhere against their will.
Yes. And that's
Yeah,
how it felt
exactly.
to me.
Yeah,
I often refer to the dead as the body challenged.
sure.
And
Okay.
I say, I say all the time, dead are people too, because they're like, oh, what are the dead like? You know, thank you, Hollywood, for the dangling eyeball and the
Mhm.
half of the head torn off. And no, they don't come like that. They want to communicate. They want to be there. They want to be seen. So if you wanted to be seen, would you present as this grotesque nightmare, or would you clean yourself up a little bit?
I would think you would want to be your best image unless you are some kind of evil entity and your whole existence is to terrorize. And then
And
you would
that's
go,
and
whatever. Yeah.
you know what? That is 9 times out of 10 how people are like, well, how do you know? Now there's things out there that will disguise and will they a lot of them hide as kids. You know, you think you got a kid spirit and sometimes it's not. Now I will say right now that the terminology gets me when people start talking about demons and evil and poltergeists and things like that. There's genres that we have to learn about in this profession, and a lot of it is it's so rare. Like to see an actual demon or an actual like something that's coming for you. It's so rare. You know, 9 times out of 10, it is something that wants to communicate and it does want to be heard. You know,
Yeah.
so this whole thing of, you know, the I see dead people, sixth sense type shit. That's not how it oh sorry. But
Right.
that's how it goes down, you know? And it yeah. The dead are people too.
Yeah, you've touched on some stuff that it's like I'm sitting here going, man, I wish I could see some of this stuff. And Jenna, because a lot of stuff you've mentioned has been a lot of the stuff the way Jenna describes a lot of it,
Mhm.
and that's a lot of times, she picks up on, she sees the visuals and weird colors and the nausea and all that stuff, and I'm over
Yeah.
here like, oh la la da 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 da, what's going on? Although there's times where like there's been a couple times where I've been like I felt like I've been touched and I've described it to her and she's like, congratulations, look. She's like, you get to join.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah. She's like, it's adorable. Scott got touched by something. I'm like, no, I'm sure it was probably just this or that or whatever. And she's like, no, no, that's what it was. Because she
you
says
know what?
that like she says apparently like when we go into places and if there's like legitimate child spirits that they're drawn to me. She goes something about I guess because you're jovial and I go I look like Santa Claus. Is that what you're saying? I'm like, but she's like you kind of put off this vibe of you're happy go lucky and that
Mhm.
and kids like that. They
They can
see that
feel it.
as kind of yeah. And because there's the one time that I really remember feeling like I got touched. She's like yeah, there's like a kid floating lays around you like doing that stuff. I'm like, okay then. But yeah, it's she'll go into detail and describe things or vibes like that, and I'm just like, well, my EMF doesn't say anything. This doesn't say anything. So, and she's like, oh, you can't see that. I'm like, nope, nope, I can't.
Oh, I got into a full blown like argument over an investigator over equipment because I was having a conversation with someone who had passed and he was trying to record it and he kept telling me to he's like shh, we're gonna and I'm like I can't shush, that's rude, they're right there. And he's like I'm here to help validate you and I'm like I don't need you to validate me, I'm trying to talk to dead Bob, what's wrong with you, quit being
Yeah,
rude.
that's the thing. It's like
It's
you
weird.
you and yourself are the tool, right? And it's like
Exactly.
in some cases, I mean, we haven't come up with the technology yet that can do some of this stuff. And yeah, I mean, the only like you were talking about nausea. Although I will say there was one time, it wasn't too long ago. We were in Felicity and we went to the funeral home there. Now I'm gonna preface this story a little bit just so you know where I'm coming from on this. I grew up right down the street from Felicity. I grew up my hometown's Beth, Ohio, which was like a couple miles up the street. So I'm very familiar with Felicity. I had a cousin that grew up there. She committed suicide. So I there's a
Oh.
certain stigma with Felicity just because that reminds me of her. So so we go to Felicity, the funeral home, and all of us that were there, like within minutes of walking in this place in this one room, and it was everybody, from the people that are more on the sensitive side
Mm-hmm.
and to the ones that are more skeptical like myself. All of us had something like that happen. and it was crazy, and to the point where I had to walk outside. And it was very emotional. It was very it wasn't like nausea, but it was more like emotional. Like I felt a lot of dread and a lot of just disorientation. Where I actually had to take a walk down the street, was kind of just thinking, and
Yes.
looked up, and right in front of me was my cousin's house where she was living, where she lived. And I was like, oh wow, this is really strange.
Mhm.
So I don't know how much of that was in my own head and got in my own headspace, but yeah, it was weird. And then the other times I've been back, I've never had that problem. But
So
yeah, it was weird looking around because Jenna had some experiences there and stuff like that. So it was, I get it.
one of the things that I do in a lot with a lot of my students, I have a lot of people come to me and they'll be like, you know what? I think I have a gift, but I'm not really sure. So we'll sit down. I will usually do a session with them to find out, where their gift may or may not lie. And the first lesson is always, if you think you felt it, you felt it.
You don't
Because
say I'm sorry. You're totally
um,
100% normal.
I
Sorry.
actually I've probably only done that a couple times in my entire life. I happen to believe that most people, I call it the spark of divinity. I believe that everybody has a little bit. And it may manifest like, you know what? I feel like taking a different route to work today. And then there was a major car crash the way you would have normally gone.
Right.
It can be something that's muted, or it can be like, oh, I see my dead grandma and we talk and have tea. So it's I with my girlfriend all the time. She sees stuff and she will kind of play it off like, oh no, that was just out of the corner of my eye or whatever. And it's so funny because my girlfriend is an atheist.
Right. I remember you telling me
So
that.
having me in the house, it's kind of like, oh, cool, you saw someone dead in the bedroom? Okay. She's like, whatever. So she's very
Burn the
she's one of
witch!
the
Burn the
people.
witch!
Oh God.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's pretty cool. But yeah, going back to the site, I think that a lot of people have it and don't know. And normally, if you've gotten to the point where you're talking to someone like me, it's because something drove you there. Like
Mm.
people, I don't know what people think I'm going to do during a reading, but I will have people that literally dance around getting a reading for like months. They're like, oh, I want a reading, maybe. Good. Well, hold on. I'll talk to you later. And I'm like, okay.
They may be afraid you're going to tell them something they already know or
I,
confirm something, or I
I
don't, I
don't
don't.
know. Like, I don't, I've
It's
told
not like
people
you're going
so
to get
many
the lottery
times,
numbers, right? Because if you are, we'll talk right now. If you know what the lottery
bruh,
numbers are going to be,
if I
you
could
wouldn't be
do
on this.
that,
You would not be on this show if you could do that. First of all,
no, it would be like from my jets
yeah, it would
driving
be.
to my island.
Yeah, I don't. You'd have a lot better things to do on a Tuesday night than talk to me
Maybe not
if
a
you could
Tuesday, no, a
predict
Saturday.
lottery numbers, right?
But yeah, no, and it's funny, I have to go into like the personal gain. I've had people, you'd be amazed. And it's funny because I almost get nervous when people aren't nervous at all. Because I get questions like, I remember one of the first readings I ever did publicly. This guy sits down in front of me and he's like, oh, so you're like one of them psychic people, right?
What am I
And
thinking?
I'm
What
like,
number am I thinking?
no, he asked me what color his couch was at home.
Okay.
And I said, I don't know. You live there. It's not why I'm here. I'm not a circus act. I'm not,
Uh,
I get the weirdest stuff, and then I get people, oh, my favorite is when I tell somebody something and they're like, no. And then they reword exactly what I just said and go, well, it's actually like this. And I'm like, oh, okay, you're right. But like, that's the biggest part of what I do. Like, I'm not going to go into, oh, this is what you like at home when nobody's watching, or remember that thing you stole when you were 7? Like, I don't care. That has nothing to do with what we're talking about. My perfect example, my girlfriend wanted to sit in on a reading when we first got together. So with permission from my client, of course, I said, yeah. So we're sitting there and we're doing a reading. I'd never spoken to this woman before. She was a referral from another person that I knew. And after the hour-long session, I got off the phone and I looked at my girlfriend. I'm like, well, what do you think? She goes, well, I don't mean to be disrespectful, or anything, but it just sounds like you were giving her really good advice. I said, okay, now I'm going to give you a random phone number of a random person that you've never spoken to you've never spoken to, and I need you to give them the perfect advice for them right now. And
Yeah.
she's like,
Well, that's
oh, but that's how
actually,
my
it
sessions
feels like a
are.
lot of it is psychology. Like you are like a psychiatrist. You know, people are coming to you. Maybe they've had some kind of trauma or something, and they're kind of looking for somebody to help them, cope or accept or just understand something about themselves, maybe that they already know or don't know,
Well, and
and
that's, yeah, that I have actually have a one of my clients that refers to me as her therapist, and I'm like, okay, just don't say that in a public setting where I can get sued. But
right,
it's a therapy session with a little bit of extra help. Like there may be that one thing that you called me about that you don't know how to bring up, and I will see it, and then we'll talk about it.
right.
Plus I have a pretty wide range of reference when it comes to life experience. I grew up in Vegas, moved out here. Like I've been through a lot and I've done a lot, and I think that helps me through as much as my gift. It's just, we're just going to sit down and talk. It's not going to be weird, I promise. It might be weird. I did have one session where a woman's uncle showed up that had, he was deceased. So he showed up and he had a guitar, and he serenaded me in my home for like 3 months. So, she's like, oh my God,
Was
that's
he any good?
amazing.
Was he at least talented?
No, he was really good. He was really good.
Okay, okay.
But
Well,
the minute I said that, she's like, "Oh my God, that's my Uncle Mike." So I mean, there are those moments that I like. I cherish those moments. I think I feel so blessed to be a part of that. But it's not what people think it is. I'm not. Oh God, what was that Jamaican psychic?
I knew they had the. Yeah, I know you're talking about.
Cleo, Madame
Yes,
Cleo.
Cleo, Madam
Oh
Cleo.
my
Yep.
God. Like, and I know when people think psychic, that's what they think of, that there's my crystal ball and I've got 47 scarves on my head. And, there's
They're
like
cutting
weird
chickens. Wait, that's
smoke.
voodoo, but you're reading cards and looking at the bones and
Yeah, I don't do
all
any of
that
that.
stuff. You don't have the right
Mm-mm.
accent for all that. It's
Right,
like you get.
right. Yeah. So I spent too much time on my hair.
So you so so that brings up something, and again, I don't like how does it work? Like when you look at people, can you see like different auras and energy? Is that your one of your things? Is it more like you got to touch somebody and it's like the movie The Dead Zone where you touch them and suddenly you have flashbacks? I'm just
So
curious, and I know it's different for different people, but yeah, as somebody
no, and
that's
that's
that
probably every psychic will give you a different answer for this,
yeah,
but I do have some telegifts. That part is weird for me, and that doesn't happen very often. But if someone is in serious pain and I happen to brush up against them or touch them and I'm not guarded, I feel it, and it will make me, it's not stomach sick, it's heart sick. Like it gets
okay,
really heavy in my chest. But when I do readings and stuff, basically the way I explain it is, how like CB radios, all that stuff works on broadband. Humans do too.
okay,
So we all know that the brain creates electricity. It's a thing. It's proven. For whatever reason, I can see it. So
okay,
it's kind of hard to explain, but like I'll do what I call an energy pull before a reading, so I know what I need to focus on. And you'll see me do this a lot,
yep,
and that's to kind of keep in my body, and it helps me focus and meditate. So I will find that person, and it's literally looking through all of the different chords and finding that one chord that goes to that one person. And it
okay.
is something that I see. For whatever reason, I can see it and other people can't. And that's how I read. So which is kind of cool because I used to tell my dad when I was little that I could see the air. And he was just convinced that my mom did too many drugs with me when she was pregnant.
That's like Jenna mentioned. She can see. I think auras and stuff. And when she was little, she would tell her mom that that person's got a different color and that stuff. And her mom was like, we don't talk about that kind of stuff. So yeah, I
Yeah,
was just
and
curious how that worked.
I've had people like I don't see auras as much as as normal psychics will tell you they see auras and they see colors. I see kind of a black silhouette with light behind it, and then there will be cracks in certain areas where the light comes through, and that's where their
Okay.
pain is.
Oh,
So my whole family is, I come from a long line of sixth generation confirmed. And my kids are, and my granddaughter started presenting at 3. So it's in the blood, but it's the light. And I
okay.
think it's because I want to help. It's that healer in me. And when the light comes through, I see where they hurt. Like I will literally see a crack in the head, or I'll see a crack in the chest.
Oh,
And
wow.
it's weird. Yeah. It's literally like, and it always reminds me of like the old Notre Dame gargoyles.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
But it's just, I can just look and I see, and it's always beautiful to me, because I think that, the light coming through is a sign of positivity.
Derek,
Derek.
you can grow one too, buddy. It just takes a while. You just have to, with COVID, I haven't even got a haircut probably since June. So unfortunately, it
Give me
grows
a couple
faster on
months.
it grows faster on this part of the my face than the top. I wish it would grow like that. I'm sorry.
No,
You
fine.
were talking. So you said 6 generations, right? So it sounds like your family embraced this more than they were like, "Oh no, we don't." I mean,
So it's,
like for you to know that far back that you had relatives that did this, or was it like we don't talk about Uncle so and so, but he had the shine, he had the shinning.
the
You know what I mean?
shrine.
It's
No, it's my great grandma was, well, okay, to hear my grandpa tell it, my great grandma was full blooded Cherokee, and she would do things for the family, like when people got sick. And then we had my grandpa, who knew he had the gift, but he was kind of a smartass about it. Like I was having a really hard time with my oldest son now, my pregnancy. I was just like, I'm going to be pregnant forever. I know it. I'm going to be the one person in the world that is pregnant forever. I know. And he's like, shut up. You're going to have this child on September 12th, 3 a.m. I had my son on September 12th, 3:10 a.m. So I called my grandpa and I'm like, you were totally off. And he's like, I'm getting old. You know, but
plus
that's
or
kind of how,
minus.
that's how he was about it. And my mom, it actually drove her insane because she played with it. So it's not something that you can play with. And my mom's a mess. God bless her. But, so it's like sprinkled in the family. We have people that acknowledge it, people that don't, people that are hardcore one way, hardcore the other. So it's kind of all over the place. As far as I know, I'm the only one in my family that has like come out and said, ta-da! So it's
Oh,
strange. It's a lot longer story than that, but that's the best way I can sum it up.
so you do readings remotely as well, right? The
Yes.
persons don't have to. So I guess that's the part that I try to wrap my brain around. And Jenna's she's explained it to me before, and when she explained, I was like, oh, okay, it makes sense. And now I'm totally like, I don't remember how this worked. But as somebody that thinks of things more as energy, and like you said before, we put out energy. We are made of energy. Instead of I'm not the most religious person. I'm probably, if I had to say, I'm probably agnostic. I'm not as far as atheist because I believe that something had to do something somewhere, but I need more
Right.
proof. So I'm more
Right.
on the scientist side. But anyways, it's easier for me to, when I think about stuff, it being positive and negative energies and how those interact. So how does the whole doing it remotely versus being there in person, how does that work? I mean,
So
I don't mean how does it work, but I mean, do you get the same potency or the same results doing it remotely as you would if the person's there? Does it matter? I mean,
yes. So
okay,
there is a difference between someone sitting in front of me and me doing reading over the phone. I can get stuff, and the more I know you, the more I read for you, the easier it becomes because I know your energy. but there's kind of like, I explain it like I have to put a battery pack on when I do it long distance because it takes more energy. Now, does that mean it's less effective? Not really, but maybe instead of reading for an hour, 45 minutes is more comfortable. When I remote view a location, it's weird because it's always, via some sort of device that I can see the location, and distance becomes almost relative. Like I can feel there. It's,
Okay.
I can feel the room. I can feel even, I've had situations where I have felt, I'm like, okay, go to the right. And they'll swing the camera to the right. And I'm like, yes, right there. That's what I was feeling. And
Okay.
it's just a relative concept. It's, doing what I do, things do become kind of strange.
Well, it's like, it seems like the distance part is more of a moot point because I'm
Yeah.
trying to wrap my head around it. It's almost like bandwidth. It's like, okay, the farther out we go, like, if I'm doing a reading with somebody that's in Ohio and I'm in Indiana, okay, that's pretty decent. But if they're in Alaska, it's going to be kind of choppy, or,
Well,
or like the locations. And even Jenna was like, that's not really how it works. It's kind of like
no.
you just are there. And I'm like, okay, that's
Yeah.
a concept that's interesting to wrap around.
It's almost, they say this, the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. Well, if you were to take that line and just kind of mush it together,
Yep.
that's how a reading is. It's just, let me find you, and I can see it's like literally a kind of shiny cord that goes to that person. And then once I connect and I feel the connection, it's like, it's not
Yeah,
different. I mean,
you're almost talking stuff on the subatomic level then, as far as how that plays out, which starts getting into the whole, huh? That's interesting. That's where the science comes into it. Now I'm intrigued.
well, I would love to sit down and explain because I don't have the language for that.
Yeah,
But I
sure. I
would
mean,
love to sit down with somebody that understood stuff because I'm like, I don't know how this works, down, is it a molecular thing? Is it a whatever? I don't know, but I do know how it looks to me and I can tell you my process. And I would like to see if there is something scientifically proven because I know I've seen people when they were in communication with spirit that were under the that were being monitored, actually having their
right.
brain monitored, and their brain goes into the beta state, and it's phenomenal to watch. And like, okay, why? What is physically happening? Like, what put them? Is it highly meditative? Is it? Oh, that, see, I'm not that different than everybody else. Like, I want to know too. And it's just recently, probably within the past 5 or 6 years, that I came up with the broadband thing because I realized, living where I lived, that it was just so loud all the time. And I'm like, why? And I had to really sit and meditate on it myself. And what is my process? And how do I do this? And I need answers for myself. And that's what it was. It was like, for whatever reason, I see the end point and then bring it to me. And
Do you
it
find
literally,
you kind of talked about how being loud, and that made me think about something that Jenna had said. Do you find sometimes that us, I'm not going to say normal, us are moguls? What's the term in Harry Potter? The
muggle.
non-magical people, muggles. Like things just get too crazy and it's hard to tune that out. Like you just start, like, and maybe you're in an emotional state or you're in a weakened state, and like your guard, because Jenna talks about having to like harden her spine and stuff like that to kind of tune it out. Like the one when we first started dating, and before we even kind of went down this path of the paranormal and stuff, and that we went to a concert. It was an outdoor concert. We had a hotel, right? The hotel ended up being, we took a cab from the hotel to the concert. It was about 3 miles away, which we didn't really pay attention to the distance. Had a few beers, decided to come back, and said it was so busy, couldn't get a taxi. We're like, we're just walking. We can walk it. It's not that far. So ends up being a 3 mile hike. During the midst of this 3 mile hike, we walked past, it was in Columbus. We walked past the largest Columbus cemetery, unbeknownst to, we're walking by it, and she just starts being like, God, I got to get out of here. I got to get out of here.
Yep.
Shut up. And this, and this, and this, and this. And I'm looking at her like, who's this? Who are you having this conversation with? And then we got back and she's like, yeah, she's like it was just like all over the place. And because, the
Lighthouse.
alcohol and stuff, it was like I couldn't tune it out. And it was just this, and hey, I need this and this. And oh, you can see me. Oh, you can see me. Hey, look at me over here, kind of stuff. It's like once they pick up on that, then it's like, yeah.
No,
So
it's the light, what I call the lighthouse effect. So if there is a psychic medium standing in a room of 300 people and there is a person who is deceased, we look different. And this is how I've had it explained to me by the dead. We look different. We have the sight, they can see that we have the sight, and they just go boom, and they will beeline for us. For whatever reason, just like imagine yourself walking around one day and nobody can hear you, nobody can see you, no matter what you can do, you have no communication with the world.
right.
And then all of a sudden, you look at someone and they look back at you, and you're like, oh, I saw you see me. Oh, blah, 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 blah. I've had to tell spirits, like, whoa, slow down. Cemeteries, oh God, yeah. And especially if there's alcohol involved, because alcohol does thin the veils. So alcohol takes away your inhibition and it turns off your no button. Alcohol turns off your no button. So all of that
Well,
rationale.
that happens to us, the
Oh yeah,
normal people too.
absolutely, absolutely. It turns off that
I'm not allowed to drink
analytical.
tequila
Well, and like you said, there's that part of you that's like, oh, I was touched. No, I wasn't. That was this or that or the other. Well, when you're drunk, all you have is I was touched. And it stops there. And then you start going into this other, and we do it too as psychic mediums. Like if I've had a couple drinks, I'm like, oh my God. If I forget to, I call it my silver surfer. That's my protection. But if I forget to put
I
that
love
on,
that you have all these little terms for everything. It makes it easier to follow and understand. I
well,
love it.
and that comes from having students, like, and having children. My kids are gifted, and I've had to tell, because of stuff that happened to me when I was young with this gift, I've had to train my kids. And come on guys, put up your silver surfer, I need to say it fast. But if I forget sometimes and I'm out there just having a great time, and then, oh my God, the bank, I went to the bank and I wasn't thinking, I was trying to be a normal person going to the bank. And this poor woman is standing in front of me. Her dead mother is right behind her. And so I'm trying to like do this transaction, and there's this woman right here, and she's like, da, 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 and tell her I don't like her hair that way. And her boyfriend is a piece of shit. And da, 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 da. I'm like, I need that in fives.
And the clerk's just looking at you like, what?
No, and finally I just had to say, okay, stop. And I said, is your mother about this tall, curly brown hair, glasses? She passed away. She's like, and I'm like, I'm sorry, she's so loud. Oh, but yeah, so.
Wow. That lady's
Yeah,
like,
my experience.
like I said, I
That's what I'm
mean,
saying. I hear people that say like, "Oh, I wish I could see," and I wish. Be
well, yeah,
careful.
I don't think I want to see it all the time, but and then I don't know. I mean, I've seen some stuff growing up that kind of put me down this path. So as much as I'm a skeptic, like I've told people before, 99% of what I see, I usually feel like I can explain away. It's that
Yeah,
1% that I can't. And
yeah.
that makes me go, okay, there's something bigger than me. And maybe, like I've said before, maybe it's that I'm not smart enough to understand what it is or be able to explain it. And it is explainable, but if I can't explain it and people around me can't, it is what it is. But yeah,
No,
it's that 1% that keeps me coming back.
I've never thought it was a case of being not smart enough. I think a lot of people's problems is they're too smart. So it's those people that can explain away anything. And I think that's where, the analytical adult part of us comes in. And, we start, my feet are in a 300-year-old building. It's windy outside. That creek came from this area. Well, I happen to know that wall isn't sound or what, and we go there and we totally forget about the fact that we just may have had an experience. I don't think it's a matter of lack of intelligence or anything like that. I think it's just straight up, we are brought up to feel, think, and act a certain way. And what I do is out of societal norm. So that is weird to people. That is and a lot more than weird to a lot of people. So it's just easier to explain it away.
Yeah.
And I've had to, because of the experiences that I've had to kind of peel away those layers and go, no, I can't. Because I'm telling you right now, I'm probably the only super skeptic psychic medium I know just because of that. Like, it still makes me crazy sometimes. Like, why is this happening? How is this happening? But it's that analytical part.
No,
It's definitely not a lack of intelligence. I think it's too intelligent in a lot of cases.
yeah, it's like, because there's lots of times Jenna will see something. We're looking through footage and that, and she'll be like, "Did you see that? Did you see that?" And I'm like, "Jenna, hun, that's this, and this." And she'll be like, "Oh, yeah, you're right." So I have to talk her down. And then there's times when the best though is when we both look at each other and she's like, "You saw that, right? You saw what I saw," and I'm like, "Yeah, I did." And I'm kind of the usual stuff, the checklist. I've checked it all off, and I still don't have an answer for it. So it's like, ooh, that's
My
exciting.
girlfriend is the same way. I have found that she has two reactions that are like, yeah, I saw something. The first one is, huh.
Yeah,
And the second one is, that's interesting.
yeah,
Like, that's the
yeah.
most I ever get though. Like, she knows she can't explain it, but she won't like, ah. And every once in a while I've got to be pulled down to like, oh my God, that was, oh, perfect example. We were at the school, we were taking just random pictures like you do. And in one of the pictures that we got this perfect set of disembodied eyes. And I'm like, that is not an orb. That is not a light refraction. That is not this. That is not that. Da 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 da. That's a set of eyes. I know it is. And then I walked down the hallway where the picture was. It was a stove. Like, I got super excited. I'm like, ah,
Yeah. No,
yeah,
it happens to the best of us.
yeah.
Yeah,
That does
I've
happen.
I've I've been there before with that. Jenna's been there before, but we had still. I'll have to find this picture. But we when we first were when we first started out, we weren't really doing the ghost hunting thing. We were just like, hey, we like to travel. I'm really into old architecture and buildings,
Mm.
and just the whole history and stuff like that. And Jenna's like, we should combine this and like we should make the like when most people go on vacations, they go to the beach and stuff like that. Let's start looking at like haunted places. I'm like, oh, that sounds awesome. If nothing else, it's a great conversation piece, right? So
Right.
we went to we were in Savannah, Georgia, and we went to
Oh,
the what was that place called? Shit, she'd know off the top of her head. It's like the most famous um, house in Savannah.
is that
It's
the
not the
Sorrel House?
Sorrel House. Thank you. Yes, that's it. So we did a tour there, and then I want to say there was maybe it was a slow night, maybe 8 people on this tour, including the tour guide. So, we had just our cameras and we're snapping pictures. We're going through the house. They're talking about stuff that's happened there and everything else. We walk into this room and they have the big fireplace, and above it's this big older mirror. Jenna snaps a picture. So, and she did burst pictures of it. So she's got a picture that you can see her. You can see all the people. All the people are accounted for. You can see her holding the camera up. You can see the flash and stuff like that. And all of us is in frame. And then there's this one other lady, the blacked out eyes, that whole thing in the picture. And
That's
like,
amazing.
and she flipped through it, and then she's like, "You got to look at this. What the hell is this?" And I'm like, and because we're like, okay, that's not that. That was the tour guide there, and because I started looking through video and stuff, and I'm like, okay, there's that person there. This person, that what angle would that person have to be at? And it's like literally we were all standing looking at this mirror, and that's what she took a picture of. So it's like that person was literally behind her like this. It was weird. So
There's something
that
about
was one of the
mirrors,
first
man.
times, man. That was one of the first ones we got where it's like, okay, all right, maybe there's something to all this stuff.
Uh-huh.
Um, so yeah, but yeah, it's just kind of it's gone from there. But no, I dig it. It's not for everybody. I mean, a lot of times you spend a lot of times in cold buildings in the dark, waiting for things
Yep.
to happen. But
Yep.
um, it's when it does happen though. It's pretty awesome.
It's kind of
Um,
like fishing.
no, yeah, you're right. It is. There is a lot. Yeah, there's a lot of it. I feel like some of the experience reminds me of when I was in bands where we would travel places. We'd drive in a little beat up van. We'd go to a bar. We'd unload a bunch of gear. We'd play a show. And then 4 in the morning, we drive home and all this stuff. So it's kind of like, it feels like you're like this, you're doing that kind of same gig. Now you're
Yeah.
loading in all the gear, the paranormal gear, and setting up cameras and whatever else. I mean, at least you get to come in and you get to do the hand rubs and this pow, I'm ready, energized. But that's all. Well, do you want to? So one of the things, and again, if you're not comfortable talking about, but we do have for the people that are watching. One of the things that early on we did a thing at Middle Point School where Jack was there, and she did a session, and it was with Doogie from the Tennessee Ray Chasers was involved in that. And did you want to talk about that, because this is one of the even Jenna had her body cam on. She's the one that actually videotaped it. And I was out of the room. I think I was down the hallway with one of the other groups or something. So we were acting as kind of host, taking people. And Jenna was in the room with you. And she came out. And she's like, "Oh my God, you've got to see what's going on here." So
You're talking
if you
about the
wanted,
You Are My Sunshine?
yes. That was wild.
Well, the funny part about that I don't know if you even know, Brandy Marie was at that same event, and she and I were sitting together in the auditorium before that, way before that happened. And she looked over at me, and she has actually interacted. I had a son pass away, and she has interacted with my son before. And I know because I have a very specific trigger term with my son, and she picked up on it right away. So there's no like, no, she did. We're sitting there, and she kind of had her arms up on the chairs, and we're watching someone speak, and she kept looking over at me and looking over at me. And I was like, "What's up?" She goes, "You know he's here, right?" And I'm like, "I know, mommy's at work, like trying to do some stuff." So to this experience, Doogie and I were upstairs, and Doogie's got some amazing equipment, and I love his energy. I feel like Doogie and I play off each other really well.
Yeah, he's a very positive and very
Oh
cool guy.
man. And he's, he taught me a little bit more on how to speak to the dead in that environment, like, "Oh, what's your favorite ice cream flavor?" Don't go up there and like, "Oh, when you were hung, how did that feel?" Like, come on.
Yeah.
So Doogie and I were up there, and we're hearing stuff come through. And we're kind of going back and forth about what we're hearing. And we turn off the light, or the lights were off. And I felt my son, but again, I was like, no. And then all of a sudden, I hear, "You Are My Sunshine." And no one,
it came over the radio, right? The
yes,
ghost box.
it came over the
right.
ghost box. Because they were talking about singing.
Right.
They were
They
talking
were
about
in the
singing.
room, and and Doogie kept saying, "Are you the music man?" I think is what.
Yeah, "Are you the music man?" And then they said something about singing, and we wanted to sing or something. And that's when we started to hear "You Are My Sunshine." Everybody heard it in the room. I freaked out.
Yep.
My son literally came up through the floor and was standing in front of me. And I was so moved by that because, number one, it's never happened before. Number two, everybody else heard it. And the thing about that song that nobody in that environment knew, matter of fact, I don't really talk about it unless it's with my kids, that is my song to my children when they're sick or when they're scared. "You Are My Sunshine" is, it's actually a family thing. My grandpa used to sing it to me, and it's just one of those things that kind of got passed down. So there was no doubt where it was coming from. And then again, like I said, when I saw my son, I actually did have to remove myself from the situation for a minute because that was so emotional, and I'd felt him there, but again, it was like, mommy's at work. And my son passed very, very young, but he doesn't present like that. He presents much older, probably mid-20s, and he's always just so loving and warm. And he took that moment to just be like, "Yeah, I'm here, Mom, and I see you, and I love you." And I just, whew.
That was awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, I still get emotional thinking about it.
I totally, when Jenna was telling me that, because she got emotional too, and she's like, you got to see this. You got to see this. And I know Doogie was like, dude.
Yeah, yeah. And
And it
I
was
mean,
like, you know,
I
you could
think we
say,
all,
well, maybe the coincidence of this, but when you start putting all these pieces together, it's like, wow, how could there not be something to that? I mean, the
no,
way
and
that all played out.
I knew me leaving kind of was like, whoa, what's going on? Because I had a couple people follow me out, like, are you okay? And then I came back in the room and explained what had happened. And the amount of, like, there was nobody in that room that questioned what happened or was any kind of cynical about it. And I had the love and compassion I felt
Yeah.
in that moment. Oh my God. Like, it was, I got hugged from so many people, and just, I mean, psychic hugs, and everybody was like, oh my God, that was amazing. And of course, obviously we're talking about it now. I still talk about that with
All
people.
right.
Like, it was a phenomenal experience, and just one of those undeniable things. And it was so funny because my girlfriend went to the bathroom like 3 seconds before that happened. I was like, there was the
Oh,
experience you were waiting
she would
for.
just been like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, but it was phenomenal. That I love those moments. Like, that's why I do this. That's
Yeah.
those moments, those undeniable, unexplainable proof. And I've done so many readings with so many people that walk away and thank me just for that moment of, my loved one is okay. My loved one is still around, is still watching me, does still love me. Like, those are the things I want to connect people with, because so many people have so much worry and anxiety about what happens after death, not only to their loved ones but to themselves. Am I leaving this realm to go to another hellacious place where I have to blah 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 whatever, and to be able to open people's eyes by being a conduit from people who are there. That, like, I can't even tell you how honored I feel to be a part of that journey. It's why I do what I do, even as hard as it can be sometimes. Those moments make everything worth it. And I like to be given one myself.
Yeah.
I mean, what else could be called a gift from God?
No, that's a fair statement. It's a fair statement. So as you were telling us, because I remember that it was wild, because it was like the whole room, the whole mood changed. And to your
Yeah,
point, it was like everybody just was like, you just saw it in everybody's faces. Like, I just saw something. I saw
yeah,
something I'm gonna remember. And that was just that was just awesome. That was again, that's in me, that falls into that 1% that
yeah,
that I still talk about, because it's like all this other stuff. Although it was funny, I think it was that same day. I think that was the first time I went to Middle Point. I was walking up the stairs. I was one of the first times doing Facebook Live, and I was literally just had the camera, and I'm walking down the hallway, and I remember looking down the hallway, and what I thought I saw was a shadow figure. I'm the only person upstairs at this point, still early. Some people were downstairs, but nobody had come up the hallway yet. And I'm like, huh. I remember looking up, seeing it, and I must have said, huh, that's interesting. And then people on the Facebook chat were like, "Oh my God, what was that? What was that? What was that?" And I'm like, "Oh, they saw it too." It's like, all right, let's go down there and make sure it's not a critter or something like that. And it's like, okay, well, here we go.
that's
Welcome
so
aboard.
fun. I think there were probably two consistent sightings that we had, and I loved going there multiple times because you got to see the multiple groups of people hit on the two same things. And it was the shadow figure that would hang out in the stairwell and then go down the hallway, and then the,
Mhm.
the little boy that would kind of greet you in the front.
Okay, yeah,
And that everybody hit on that. And I'm like, how do you explain that? Like, everyone that comes in, these people don't know each other. There's
yeah.
no, like, that we don't talk about it. It just, and everybody hit on those same two things so consistently. I loved watching that.
Yeah, that was a neat place to go into and kind of check out.
It
Um,
was.
yeah, Lordy. Yeah, I'm still thinking about that whole Music Man thing because it was like that was a wild one. That was a
Yeah,
wild one.
there was a lot of really intense stuff that happened on that floor. And hearing the music, every time Doogie would start talking about, and it wasn't, to be clear, the app he was using wasn't the normal like scanning the radio stations app. It was that I can't remember what it's called.
Uh, uh, um,
Oculus,
Spiritus. I think it was
Spirit,
Spiritus or
something.
something like
Okay,
that. I think
yeah,
that's
but
what
it
he.
was
Jenna would know, but I think he uses Spiritus is the one I think he's using.
yeah, it was different, and I remember the sounds being so different, and I really like that. I like seeing new devices.
Yeah.
But yeah, that God, what was it,
Well,
like a trumpet or a saxophone we got at one point?
there was
Like they
something
were,
like that, and I know we went back and Joel Myers, who does the ghost stop or the ghost site stuff, he makes the night
yeah,
cam
uh-huh.
stuff. One of the first times I met him, he came out and Spiritus, yeah, that's what Jenna's saying. Um, he brought a harmonica, and they went in that same room, and I guess because a lot of stuff was triggered by music, and they were up there, and he would do a harmonica, and this it was almost call and response. You'd hear over the radio, it would be like it would make some tones that sounded like somebody playing a harmonica, and he
Wow,
would play a harmonica back to it, and it
that's
they
amazing.
would go through all that stuff. So it was like, yeah, there's something going on there. It was pretty wild.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, he's like, yeah, I heard about this, so I figured I'd give that a shot. But to your point, that's cool when trigger objects and things like that. Oh, yeah, that reminds me. So with your experiences, spirits, energy, whatever you want to call it, um, how much how much of that do you think or do you see is attached to locations or objects versus maybe attached to people, or people are like magnets that draw it? Now, what I'm getting to is like, some people say maybe places aren't haunted, the people are haunted. So like you could take people out of like certain locations you go to and they seem to have consistent things. And then there's some discussions on, well, maybe because some trauma happened there, or it was built on an ancient burial ground, or some kind of energy and it's somehow trapped there. Or you also have where people are like, hey, this I've been experiencing these things. I've taken myself out of that location thinking that was the location and it's followed me. And then it's like, sometimes I wonder if some of that isn't so much external as it they're almost have their own gifts, telekinesis, whatever, and they can almost project it outwards, or they're projecting outwards and it's becoming like a beacon. So I mean, in your experience, what do you see with that kind of stuff?
So there are certain people that I like to call conduits. Um, People that for whatever reason are just insanely open to that realm, and they literally wherever they go, they're spirits. And
Yeah,
I can usually tell when it's like I can look at people and go like, yeah,
we
you're.
call
I
them
bet.
with your fishing terminology, we call them bait.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my god, yeah, absolutely. Those are the people you want around. Those are the
Yeah,
people like you give them little DR60 or whatever
yeah,
and to go because they're gonna get stuff like but it's not necessarily location. Now, what's weird? I'm from Las Vegas, so Las Vegas, it was always the building. It was always the building because Las Vegas isn't that old. Here, I've got people that are haunted, I've got buildings that are haunted, and I've got land that's haunted. And I'm learning to discern the difference. Um, I've been in buildings where I don't even see the building. I like the building is either different or I am drawn to the ground. Like I want to put my hands in the dirt. That's the land. Like something happened. I call it blooded land. There's
okay,
something that happened on that land, and it's the land. It doesn't matter what you put there, a church, a synagogue, it's going to have problems. Um, when it's the building, it's usually something happened in the building and vice versa. And but with people, yeah, there are people that take spirits with them wherever they go. There are people that call spirits to them and they don't know they're doing it. Um, being a mother who's had a son pass, it was hard in the beginning for me to let my son go, as you imagine it would be. And I've seen this in other mothers, and I say mothers only because I myself am a mother, not at all saying that fathers don't feel this. I just happen to be a mother. I have seen mothers that will drag spirits to them. And they also, when you're so open and you're in so much pain and you're so raw, you can draw other things to you as well. So
Right.
that's a multifaceted answer, but it can be all of those things. You know, it's just knowing which is which. Okay, and that can be hard sometimes if you're in a really active location like Whispers. If you put somebody in the middle of Whispers that was a conduit and then had somebody that was like next to them that had a grandpa who had passed, I wouldn't be able to tell you what was what.
Wow. What
Yeah,
about so what about you've touched on basically spirits of people that have passed. So they're the intelligent humanoid spirits. What about
sentient.
yeah, sentient, yes. So what about things out there that are more they're not human? What are they? Elementals? What things that are have maybe some sort sense of intelligence, but more on the animalistic level, and they're not fully formed, and they're just more of like an energy that just has a. Have you dealt with that?
So this is where I have to do a little disclaimer. There are a lot of beliefs amongst my people as to what is what and how it became
What do you
that.
mean, your people?
I mean my people. I mean my psychic medium people to see dead people. But there's so like I said, I do have formal training, and this is what I was taught, and this is what I have seen to be true in myself. Like people talk about poltergeists and they automatically think of the movie. You know, the thing sucks you into the TV and there's the slime and the goo. And I have actually seen people create poltergeists with their own negativity and their own evil, just ugly, and it creates this energy in your home that almost becomes sentient itself. Elementals are old. A lot of people don't like them. I don't really have a problem with them because I know better than to mess with them. It's kind of like don't poke the bear. Like I
Right,
look at it and I go, that's a bear. I'm not going to poke it.
right.
But I'm not necessarily like, you know, elementals are around for a reason and they're completely unbiased. They don't care what our agenda is. If we're in the way, we will be moved. There's a lot of other things. Like, I mean, it's a wide and varied world. I have seen some things that I'm like, okay, it was about 2 feet tall, wasn't human. Um, it may have been brown, and it kind of reminds me of the fairies on Willow. If you saw Willow,
Yeah, okay.
the little brownie things.
Bad not again.
But and then you know you hear everybody talk about creepers. You know, there's a lot of different views on what creepers actually are. And with me, creepers are very specific in the movement. It's the way they move. It's almost like you know, in the 90s and 2000 when they started doing that like really weird jerky
Yeah,
photography.
yeah, the whole jerky
That's what
thing. And
creepers.
yeah, okay.
That's how creepers move, and they're almost like long spider things. And I mean, I've seen creepers. Oh, where were we? Was it Middle Point? I think it was. No, it was Middle Point. There's one area in Middle Point where there were numerous of them, and everybody was freaking out because they're like, "Oh, creepers are evil. Creepers are evil." I am very, very, very slow to use that term. I don't think they're evil. I think they just look really creepy, so people jump on the evil terminology. You know, I myself don't feel that way, but
Mm.
they've never come for me either. So yeah, I might feel different if one tried to attack me, and I've been told by people that they've been attacked by creepers. So
Yeah, so part of this is that you kind of touched on the fact that sometimes people can create their own, they can manifest things.
Yes.
Based on maybe you got somebody that has a lot of trauma, maybe drug use, whatever, or maybe mental capacity, whatever the case may be, that they can generate these things. So I wasn't going to bring this up, but since I got you here, and so one of the things that Jen and I have been experiencing is something along those lines, and we think what we've determined is this thing. It's not evil. It's not. It's feels young to her. Um, it feels like it, it's in our area. When we moved in here, there was just some little odd things here, and it's a fairly our house is only 20 years old, so it's not like it was buried on ancient burial ground, anything like that. The people before us had a daughter that was mentally challenged.
Mm-hmm.
Great kid and everything, but yeah, there was some stuff there, so they moved on. Um, I want to say she was probably in her 20s, but she kind of behaved like she was 8, 9 years old, kind of thing. So
Okay.
everything like princess themed and stuff like that. So
Okay.
we move in and just little like almost like prank street kind of things, just little like weird shit, lights turning off and just things moving and stuff like that. And Jenna calls it sparkle static. That's sometimes what she sees. And she kept picking up on this little thing, being like, "Where's the girl at? Where's she at? I want to talk to her. I want to play with her." And it's almost like when they left, this thing was left behind. And at first, we're like, "Okay, is it something out in our yard? Is it part of nature? Is it some kind of weird thing?" And the dogs will even they get weird about it too. Like they'll suddenly just be like they won't there's certain places in the house that they just kind of get weird too, and they'll just stare at the walls and stuff. I mean, dogs do that sometimes anyways, but
Yeah.
this has happened enough to where even I'm kind of like, okay, that's interesting. Let's at least let's see what this is. But what I'm getting to is that's kind of where Jenna's kind of at the point where she feels like maybe this was because this thing keeps mentioning that girl, that we think that maybe it she drew this thing in, manifested something like that, and now she's gone, and they're like, hey, there's been a lot of changes, and like Jenna was downstairs, so we have our workshop downstairs. Jenna doesn't listen to country music ever, ever. Neither do I. She was downstairs and was playing her music, and she's down there doing she does her painting and her crafts. I'm upstairs in the living room. All of a sudden, I hear the Judds come on. And I'm like, well, that's a strange choice. Maybe she's in that. Maybe I mean I'm a music guy. I can respect music, but I'm like, that's a weird choice.
Uh-huh.
And then suddenly, immediately after that was Joe Diffie's. I I can't remember what his hit was. Anyways, it was another country song. I remember it being Joe Diffie. I'm like, two country songs in a row. I'm like, that's really strange. So I go downstairs and I'm gonna give her shit. I'm like, really? Now country? And she's over in the corner looking at me, going like this. She's like, whatever this thing is, doesn't likes country, didn't like what I was playing, and it literally
Hmm.
changed the radio. And I'm
Wow.
kind of like, really, really, just admit that you were wanting to do, love can build a bridge. I'm okay. You want to be sappy? It's all right. I would have preferred Johnny Cash, but whatever. But no, just some stuff like that. So there's been like little things, and again, I mean, as you know, kind of what we do, there is the potential to bring things back.
Yes.
You kind of open yourself up to that. That's the nature of what this is. But
Yep.
but anyways, that's kind of what we're dealing with something like that, and that's kind of where Jenna's synopsis is. It's like it doesn't seem malicious. It's more like very childlike, but it's kind of like it's moody, and it's like I had a situation where I was down there. I'm in a band. We were playing. We had a situation where we were recording, and my gear never had a problem with any of it. Playing a song, and I'm recording it. Everything just stops. Like stuff's gear never has a problem. Suddenly just dies. That's
Wow.
weird. Okay, turn everything back off. Playing the exact same song, same part, stops again.
Wow.
Jenna's like, this thing didn't like that song. I'm like, what is it, a music critic now?
Now it's a
Jesus.
critic?
She's like, it doesn't like
Wow.
noise. There appears to be like there's certain pitches, there's certain tones. it doesn't respond well to. Like the country, the harmonies in that, it seemed like, because so I'm intrigued from that. I'm like, okay, now I want to see what the algorithm is. What is it like? Does it these vocal ranges and this kind of music? Is it that kind of stuff? But yeah, so that's our little pet project we've been doing here. But
That's actually kind of awesome. And I love that she calls it sparkle static.
yeah, that's her thing.
Um,
She calls it.
I have always said, and these two kind of tie together, but I can see autism.
Okay.
It in people that are autistic, they're like, and I hate, please forgive me, but this is how they look, like Twilight vampires.
Hmm.
It's just there's something about them. And my grandma said she had this theory that people who were autistic or in any way, different from us, that they had been touched by the hand of God and were actually gifted. And because they possessed that, literal hand of God moment, because they had that moment, that they just didn't function like we did. It didn't, no better, no less, whatever. Um, so she's always said that they kind of travel easier between.
It's
So
like they
that's
have, well,
interesting.
and you feel like a lot of, as adults, we put up a lot of barriers because, society tells us to have perceptions, or this is right and this is wrong.
Right.
And you could all kind of justify or understand that people that are on the spectrum or that don't necessarily have those same
Right.
filters or whatever. They're more open-minded,
Yep.
either through genetics or just not having that kind of stimulus. Um, but yeah, so yeah, she talks about the sparkle, and the blippy people is the other thing. She
Blippy
mentions the
people.
blippy people.
Okay.
Yeah, there's times where she'll stop and she'll be like, "Do you see that?" And I'm like, "No, but you're kind of weird me out." She's like, "Oh, okay, I wasn't sure if you saw that too or not." And I'm like, "Nope, let's just keep on moving." What we
I will actually, matter of fact, yesterday I was standing in my kitchen. There is an older woman in the house that has like this long gown, like a dressing gown. And she'll pop up every now and then. One time it scared the hell out of me because I was actually in my bedroom and I kind of sat up out of bed and I went to walk to the bathroom and she was like right here. And I was like, oh, hello, hi, boundaries.
yeah.
But yesterday I was in the kitchen and we have like this little half wall. So, I was at the sink and I'm looking into the living room and there's a wall here. So I saw a head kind of poke out and then go back. And so I look and then I look at my girlfriend and I'm like, okay, that was just me. But she noticed that, I walked around and went into the hallway and I'm like, what the hell was that? Because I know I saw something, but yeah, she just kind of looks at me now and she's like, oh, is that the old lady? Oh, okay.
I'm laughing at that because literally that's the same stories that I hear Jenna say. She'll like peek around, she'll be like, and she'll look at me and I'll be like, she'll be like, you didn't see that, did you? And I'm like, nope.
No.
She's like, okay,
Okay.
don't mind. I'm like, now you gotta tell me. I mean, what's it look like? Is it on my shoulder?
Right.
Is it doing
Yep.
something rude to me when I'm not looking? Come on. What's going on?
No, I
No, we
think
have.
that's the hardest part. Like, especially when I'm on, when I started working with groups, what I did in Vegas was very different. So when I came out here and started working with groups and, I was working with all the equipment, it was really hard because I would be focusing and doing my thing. And then I'd have to stop and be quiet and be like, no, you didn't hear the scream? Just me.
Yeah.
Okay. It's like, but yeah, I have a million of those stories where I'm like, oh, there's a guy. Nope. Okay. Just kidding.
Yeah, she'll be like, this is what it looked like, this, and this kind of detail and everything. And I just look at her and I'm like, I believe you saw what you saw.
That's exactly what my girlfriend says. I believe you
I'm not,
did.
I know in my heart that you are not making this shit up.
Yeah.
Now, whether or not,
You're
you
batshit.
know, whether or not you're tuning into some other reality or if it's a spirit, that, yeah, that's beyond me. But it's like, yeah, I've been around this stuff long enough to where it's like, there's shit out there.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Whether it's the spiritual component and you bring religion into it and that. I don't know about that because there's so many different religions but a lot of the beliefs are very similar as far as when you start getting into the life, death, and energy stuff. So there's definitely a lot of common threads there.
I always say that we're all on the same highway. We're just driving different cars. I think that deep down in our hearts, we all know that murder is bad and we should love each other and, we probably shouldn't steal stuff. I mean, I think we all know the basics, and I think the basics are in all of that.
Don't be
And
a
we
dick.
all,
I mean, that's what it comes down to.
yeah, like exactly. We all want to get to whatever our version of heaven is. We're just, like I said, just driving different cars, man. I don't really care what car you're in, as long as we're on the same road, cool. And I mean, that goes for atheists, that goes for agnostics, that goes for everybody. Like, if your thing is to be a genuinely good human, cool. That's all I care about.
Because I mean, you can have great people in every denomination just as well as you can have assholes across the spectrum.
Absolutely.
That's not to me. It's more about how you are to people and treating people as you want to be treated, and that
Exactly.
and all the other stuff is just okay. That's your thing. Life's too short not to be happy is what I tell my kids. That's kind of my mantra. It's like, do what you need to do. Try not to step on other people's rights and let them do what they need to do, and understand that not everybody's going to have the same views as you. That's okay. I mean, it would be boring. It would be boring. It would be boring if we all had the same views. I had a manager one time that said if we both are yes men, one of us is redundant, and it's kind of like that's that. Yeah. So it's like, yeah, if everybody has the same views, it gets boring really quick.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But I feel
And where are your lessons in that?
What do you mean? Yeah, exactly.
If everybody's doing the same thing all the time, thinks the same way. What are you learning? What are you growing from? Like, there'd be one book and that's it, and that's the only book that would matter, and we would all be redundant.
I mean, even as a kid, there was things that I would question. I grew up Christian. My parents weren't super religious, but I went to church enough to where I knew some of the stuff. But even then, I questioned a lot of it. And some of my friends are like, a lightning bolt's gonna come down and hit you if you think like that. I'm like, well, why would God give us a brain, an analytical device to question us when he could easily have the power to put governors in there to where we can't think about stuff like that.
Right.
I worked at that reminds me, one of my careers as a young person was I was a pizza delivery driver, where I would come in and blare and Slayer all the time. And I had this older dude that was a born again Christian. And you ever seen was it Poltergeist, the second one, the old guy, the preacher? Yep. This guy just like, it's creepy as hell. He was, he was a born again, and I not saying things bad about a born again. I'm talking about this one specific individual.
Right.
He was very touchy feely to the younger girls and stuff. So he was just a creeper all around.
Yeah.
And he told one of the guys that I worked with, who was Native American, was like, "You're going to hell because your ancestors were pagans." And I'm like, how does that even work? And then I said, I'm pulling in, I'm listening. So I would always listen to Slayer and stuff just to irk him. And we got on the topic of dinosaurs one time. I'm like, so how do you wrap your head around the whole dinosaur thing? The fact that he's like, God put the dinosaur bones there to make the devout, to make people believe. And I'm like, well, why would he do that? Why would he, if that seems like an elaborate thing to do, when if you wouldn't have put him there at all, we would have never questioned it. And he was like, he couldn't, but he was like, yeah, he puts him there to distinguish between those that have faith and those that don't. And I'm like, well, why even build the doubt? Why,
yeah, exactly.
Wait a minute, these bones, these don't make any sense. They're carbon dated to go back to this time frame, and these things don't add up. And how does that play into it? It's like, why? Well, that seems very elaborate and complicated when you could just be like, I'm just not going to even include that in the story and pull them out.
Oh
Yeah,
God.
even at that age, it was like stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, people are, oh, don't talk this, and I'm like, I feel like, we have to question things. You have to question things,
Yep.
and nobody's really got all the answers, and I think that's the only way you get to maybe a better understanding is questioning stuff, and being
Absolutely.
being able to you know hear somebody and go, huh, you know what? I have not thought that way. That's a new take on this. I think when you get so stuck in your ways, kind of like we talked about before, that's an orb. Oh, that's got to be a spirit. Look at this dust orb, blah, 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 or this
That's an
orb, or
angel.
blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it's an angel. It's an angel. It's like, no, no, it's probably just an orb, or it's dust, or that's probably just an insect that flew really close to the
Right.
camera. The camera
Right.
can't focus, and that's what you're seeing. It's not a fairy and stuff like that. And but there's people out there that you try to explain that to them, and they'll get angry. I mean, I'm sure you've dealt with that on your side of it, to where it's like they
Oh
expect you to
God.
come in and be like, grandma this, and she saw you and wants you to do this, and
Yep.
you're like, that's not the case, or it's different, and they're like, no, that's what this is, and it's like,
Hmm.
okay, well, I mean, this is what I see, and I'm not saying it's 100, it's that's what I see, or how I predict it, and but yeah. So yeah,
Yep.
I've had people show me pictures and they're like, "Isn't can you see the angel wings and everything?" And I'm like, "Where'd you take this picture at?" And they'll point at this place, and I'll look around and I'll look at the picture and I'll be like, that's unfortunately that's a flash off the lens hitting the ceiling off a corrugated steel ceiling, uh, and that's the lines you're seeing, or that. I mean,
My favorite, other than orbs, is always the crosses that people see, and that's exactly how light hits.
mm,
When it hits a certain way, it's going to
yeah,
do that
yeah,
little cross thing. Just and I hate debunking stuff when it's with a person like you genuinely love, and this person is like so happy they get that like childlike
yeah,
wonder,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
you're like, no, sorry, it's
Yeah,
not
it's like, do you burst their bubble, or do you at least tell them that there's maybe, you need to look
another.
more into it? But yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I
just
tend
like,
to like I don't really have a sensor, so stuff just tends to kind of fall out of my face. I'm like, oh nope, nope, nope,
my
sorry.
thing is, even on EVPs and stuff. I mean, one of the things, a lot of people, when they put EVPs out there, be like, hey, I got this EVP and it sounds like this girl saying something. It's like right away, you've already put in my head what I
Exactly.
should frame.
Oh,
And it's like, what I'd rather you do is be like, here's a
listen to this.
recording, because you could give that recording to six different people, have them go off and listen to it, and they come back with six different things. But as soon
Yep,
as you say, "Oh, that recording is this person saying help me," that's what your
yep,
brain's going to try to hear.
yep.
And because there's the best are, though, when you have those where everybody goes, "Holy shit, that sounds like it said boom," you know.
Yeah, exactly. I have had those moments where
Yeah,
we've heard something and then looked at each other and said the same thing. Like, so it can happen. But yeah, I hate that. Listen to this. It says da da da. And you're like, well, shit. That's all I'm going to hear. So yeah, I hate that.
but I mean, we're all guilty of it to a certain extent. There's
Oh
there's
yeah,
times when, or you start on the ghost box and you hear it say one thing and then it says something else and you try to connect the dots. Oh, it said this. Does that mean you're a doctor and this is your name and all this stuff? It's like, you know, but again,
yeah,
they're all tools. Um,
yep,
and there's no, my disclaimer has always been to people, it's like, there's no science in this. There's no
right.
proven thing. Um, that's why it's cool that you can blend the things together. Like you can blend the psychic and medium, the more human abilities, and
Yeah.
the devices, because we're just struggling to try to find something. We're just trying to find answers. And
Well, and my whole thing is like I have a whole mission statement when it comes to what I do and why I do it, and it's bridging gaps, man. It's
yeah,
I want to know what's real, what isn't, what's out there. How do we do this? Is there a physical thing that I can touch, an explanation that I can read that says this is why? I'm all about that. Like I would love to sit and talk down to like sit down and talk to like every psychic and scientist in the world, just one big room, and like, let's have at it.
Yeah. Well, that's what you got to have one of those psychicons or something. I almost sound like I said Shaka Khan. That's dating me again. Um, uh, I mean, come on, there you go. There's a perfect opportunity. You can do some kind of the medium con or psychic con. That would work.
Well, actually, I held my own event October, not last year, but the year before, and it was a lot of fun. Like, it was super small. I probably had like, I don't know, 10, 15 people show up, but I mean, it was a blast. And I don't think I have a big enough platform where people would like show up. So,
Let me ask you this: do you find that there are a lot of I hate to say the word fake, but let's just put it there.
yes.
People that okay that come out of the woodwork and say I have abilities and I'm psychic and this stuff. Um, for whatever
I
reason,
think
maybe they honestly believe they are, or they're just trying to cash in on you know whatever celebrity or just attention, whatever the case may be. How does
so. Do
that
you know
work
what
for you?
do you know what a mentalist is?
Aren't those more the fake guys, right? The old school mentalist, yeah, where it was like mind
Yeah,
tricks.
they're the micro messaging, and
Yeah.
they go into the psychology behind body language and all that stuff. And I think that, like, I've heard so many people say that being a psychic medium must be the easiest racket in the world because all you have to do is make stuff up, which
Hmm.
I kind of laugh at. And I'm like, oh, gee, thanks, guys, because it's more than that. But there are people out there, and I hate that there are genuinely hurting people out there or genuinely curious people out there that tend to be a little bit gullible and will hear, oh my God. So I'm from Vegas, and there's a million fake psychics out there. And I'm not saying that everybody from Vegas is, because I'm from Vegas. So, but you sit down, and she does the head thing, and I feel like you're having some financial problems.
Aren't we all?
I'm over the age of 7, so yeah.
Yeah.
Or there's some relationship issues now. Oh well, I'm single, I don't have a relationship, so that's my issue. And they do, and then you get the people that'll feed you. Like, I tell people all the time, when I start a reading, I will say, do you have a question, or do you want me to do my thing? And because I don't want you to sit and talk to me for 3 hours and then me just vomit back to you what you just said and then call that a reading. I'm very, very, very intense with how I read, only because I've seen a lot of people do it that way. They pick up at the smallest micro signal from somebody and they go with that, and that's not a psychic reading. And you shouldn't. I mean, put yourself out there as a mentalist. Those people are phenomenal. Like, the schooling that goes with that and the dedication to that art is phenomenal. But put yourself out there like that. Don't say you're a psychic medium and take somebody down a road that you don't deserve to take them down. Like, I've seen people lose lots of money over these type of things. And I think that some people get into it for the ego. Some people, like, I have been bad mouthed a few times because I do everything, and well, that's not right, and you shouldn't do it this way. And I don't begrudge anyone their process. I'm not going to say that my way is the right way to do it for you. It's the right way to do it for me. Now, is what you do going to totally contradict what I do? Maybe. Does it work for you? Awesome. As long as you're doing it righteously, and I say that, not godlike, but just the right way. Like, you're trying to
Yeah.
help people.
Right from the heart.
I don't care how you do it. I don't care if you have to wear a friggin' tuna can on your head and stand on whatever. I don't care. Just be honest. That's all I care about. Yeah, I've seen a lot of people go the wrong way with it and try to downplay other people that do it because of their own ego. And I think that that is one of the number one reasons I didn't get involved in Vegas, because everything out there, the way I always put this, everything in Vegas is big tits, red lips, black hair, long nails. Like, I swear to God,
except for the tits, that's Chris Angel too. So yeah, it's like yeah, everybody. I said
God, I hate that guy. No, that guy. If you're local from Vegas, you hate him. He is evil. He is. Probably gonna get sued now, but whatever. He's bad. He's so bad. He's so bad. But anyway, yeah, I did go because a lot of it was that. A lot of it was ego, and a lot of it was the show. And that they're walking over. I'm the psychic medium. Stop it. Stop it. That's why people are afraid to sit down with me because they've seen stuff like that. I know I'm not the only one watching that. Other people are too. That's why I have such a hard time with the new client.
yeah, it's like I know we've gone places before, and there's been people that have claimed to be that, and Jenna's kind of looked at me and been like,
See, I don't know if Jenna has said this, but I know for me, I can feel
yeah,
when
that's
someone's about their shit. Like when someone says I'm a psychic medium, I'll be like, yeah, yeah, you are. And so you can feel it. There's a weird connection between us that is just there. It's weird.
well, I know we were one time we were at a place and there was someone and Jenna early on really didn't talk about like when a lot of times when you get the public hunts, they'd be like, anybody here have any gifts or anything like that? Any kind of that stuff. And I told her early on, I'm like, don't mention anything. We're just here. We're just lonely travelers on our, I don't, cause at this point I'm like, I don't know if people are setting us up. I don't know if they got, things going
Right,
on and they're going to
right.
play off that. Let's just, so she wouldn't talk. We were just there. This is first time doing it kind of thing and playing all up. And we went to this place one time and there's a person stepped up and they were all like, oh, I'm a psychic medium and I can hear this and this person's saying this and this and this. And Jenna later, she's like, he said he was reaching out to this person that was deceased at this place, and she goes, I totally saw that person shake. They were shaking her head and they were cussing back, saying because this guy was saying, oh, he was an adulterer and did this to his wife and all this shit, and she said, I saw this the what you call him the bodily challenged and was like no you saw and a guy I think he was Hispanic and he was like literally cussing but he was switching to Spanish. He was so pissed off that this guy was basically talking shit about him and she's like I she goes I don't know if this guy really thought he was something or was just bullshitting just because everybody was like ooh wow he's the psychic of the group that showed up and we're all going to pay attention to him because they keep going to him going are you getting a reading? Are you feeling anything? And all this stuff. And she's just like, oh. So, yeah, for the longest time, she never really talked about it too much when we went on these for that reason. We kind of do our own thing. And because I told her, I said, I'd like to, I always had this thing that when you went to a public one, they probably had plants there. Like there'd be those people that were like, oh, I see everything. I see this. And so I was like,
I feel that way. Like
yeah.
there's
So
gonna
we'd
be
always go and I'd be like,
more.
I always look for who's the plant. Who's the plant? Is this person the plant? What's going on here? And then after a while, you just kind of once you get to know it, it's like, it's just people showing up and just wanting to we'll see what's going
Yeah,
on. But yeah,
yeah,
I don't know.
yeah. Well, see, and I think a lot of people don't realize that you're not either on or off. Like, there's different levels to it. Some people can see but not hear. Some people can hear but not see.
Mm-hmm.
Some people can do both. Like, there's different, and I'm not going to say 100% of the time it's what you put into it, but I know my experience with my mediumship now is very different than it was 20 years ago. It used to take a lot for me to break through and like, oh, okay, hold on. And I used to get pulled out of it really easily and I'd be exhausted afterwards. And, I could only do one reading a day tops, and then I'd be down for like 4 or 5 days. And so as I trained, as I, put more into my mediumship, it did become bigger and grander for me. So there's different. Everybody's different. Everybody's level is different. There are people that blow me out of the water. And it is what it is. Everybody's different. So like Jenna said, no, the guy was there, but that's not what was happening.
Yeah.
I've had some experiences where I've, in my head, I'm like, that's not at all what's going on. I've had a woman at an event. She was like, "Oh, that's my son. That's my son. That's my son. That's my son. That's my son." And it wasn't just me. There were two of us, and we were both like, "That is not her son." But to tell her that
Yeah.
would have just traumatized her.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Like devastated her. Yeah.
yeah, it
Yeah.
just sounds like, what do you do?
Yeah. That's got to be tough because I mean, if you do these readings and send people down a certain path, or if you deal with somebody, and then do they ever come back to you and you're like, I thought you told me that this kind of thing and this didn't happen, and try to hold you accountable? I mean, that seems kind of a scary road to be on, because I mean, you're basically kind of a life coach in a way, you know, with a
So
little bit, like you said, a
here's
few more tools. But
I have a bit of a disclaimer for that. The people talk about fate and destiny all the time. Like I happened to read for a friend of mine who was having fertility issues, and I told her, I said, I see you getting pregnant, and she's like, "Oh, is it a boy or a girl?" And I said, "Well, I'm not really sure, but there's two." She was like, "Oh my god." A year later, she had twins. So that path stayed the same. However, there are big life altering decisions that you can make that will change your path. And a lot of people say, well, oh, that's easy. You can say whatever you want, and then, oh, well, you just changed your life path. It doesn't happen that often, though. Like, I will tell people, it's like your life is like a bowl of spaghetti, and I'm following one noodle in the bowl. This is the path
mm,
you're on right now. Now, you may have some life altering thing that you decided out of the blue to drop out of college. You decided out of the blue to become a stripper. I don't know. Like, you may have that thing that just completely alters the path that you were on. And then I tell people at that point, come back and we will reassess. I've also had people that want readings every 3 days. I won't do it. I do 2 readings a month tops. Tops. And that's for my students. So it is hard, and I have had people, you know, it's like I said, it's rare, but I have had people that were skeptical of, coming back to me like I set that up, which no, I,
no,
no, but
you're
I
kind of, you're in the service industry.
yes,
So I mean, that's really what this is, right? And
yes,
some people you're not going to please. You're not going to tell them what they want to
exactly,
hear.
exactly.
And when they don't
Um,
hear what they want to hear, then they're going to consider you either, oh, she's just a charlatan or a fraud, or she didn't tell me anything I couldn't already have figured out on my own. It was very, yeah. I'm sure that's the case. You deal with that occasionally, where people are like that, and those kind of people you just can't reach.
I
You
have
know?
I have refunded a couple times because I have had people that I could read. And oh, this poor guy. This guy calls me for a reading, and I ended up reading for his wife. And I'm like, I'm really sorry. I need to give your money back because that was not anything about you. That was about your wife. I'm sorry. And he goes, no, you actually kind of gave me some good insights about my wife. And he was so in love with his wife. Like, it was the most adorable relationship ever. So it ended up being what he wanted, and he actually refused the refund, which was cool. But I mean, there are times like nobody's 100% at anything they do. So
Mm-mm.
I do have those moments where I'm like, oh, this is rough, and I will make it good either way. But I will never. It's not my, you know, angelic sense of work ethic that keeps me honest and keeps me true to my gift. It's knowing damn well that if I play with it, I'm going to be the first person that karma's going to come slap the shit out of.
Yeah.
This gift isn't about me. It's not about me being great or wonderful or amazing. It's about the universe needing to communicate, and that is way bigger than my ego could ever be, and way more important than my ego ever will be. So it is rough sometimes. You do get those people, and I learned pretty quick how to deal with them. It's now I can kind of see them coming. That cocky attitude, like I'm just not going to make you happy, and I won't
Yeah.
gauge. So I'm about the people that want help, and now that I'm older, the universe has seen fit to bring those people to me. It's kind of like where you're in training and you finally get to fight the the prize match or whatever. But you got to get your ass kicked for like 10 years before that
Yeah,
happens.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You paid your
Now it's
dues.
kind of where I'm at.
Yeah,
I'm in the
yeah.
prize fight now, and I've earned my right to be here, but it was through a lot of exactly what you're talking about. Figuring out how to deal with the harsh, mean skeptics and the people telling me that I was Satan's whore. That was fun.
Mm.
Just all this stuff. It's used to be
Yeah,
a
I mean,
big thing, not anymore.
even doing what I do, the investigations, you catch some
Yeah,
of that, from
yeah.
some of my old school relatives, where it's like, oh, that's considered necromancy and stuff like that, and you shouldn't be this, and I'm like, I'm just I'm just kind of going into buildings and just checking shit out and seeing what's
Well,
going
see,
on. I mean,
by the
it's
strict definition of necromancy, I'm a necromancer because I deal
uh,
with death.
yeah,
So people look at terms like that. It's the terminology. It's those red button words that scare the shit out of people because they're movie titles for horror movies.
right.
People just look at that and they go, oh, well, that's what that is. No, it's not. Like, there's research. Just please, a little bit, a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
But you see that every place. You see that
Yeah,
every place where
yeah,
people kind of,
yeah,
again, people choose what they want to believe. Um, and when they get enough information that just kind of supports their narrative,
yeah.
that's kind of it's kind
Yeah,
of where you're at. I mean,
yep,
it's and we're all guilty of that. I mean,
yeah.
there's going back to investigations. There's some gear out there or tools that I look at and I'm like, oh, really, you know. But then again, who even says any of this gear is worth the shit for anything? I
Well,
mean,
like, oh my God, a little ghost hunter app that we actually used to play with at the house because we thought it was funny. I'm like, this is ridiculous. How could an app?
right?
And it's almost silly to say that now because we ran into a group, and I don't know what was happening or what was going on, but this group was there, and that little app was all they used. And I swear to God, there was like this in my head. I'm going, okay, it's their like mental power that is going into the cell phones and making the
Well,
shit work because it's the only thing that makes sense. Like they were getting stuff left and right.
and
It was
that's I think that's a lot of people. So a lot of people think the device is what's doing it, and a lot of times it's like you put me in front of a ghost box, and 9 times out of 10, you're going to get a bunch of static. You put Jenna in front of one, and it's suddenly like this thing's singing to her. I mean,
yep,
it's telling a story,
yep.
and it's just like I go back to it. It's like, you know, so
Oh yeah,
and same. There's different things. I mean, so like, I definitely think it's a combination of, and to your point, I early on I'm kind of like, okay, this device does this and this and this, but then there's the possibility that if you're talking energy in that, then it could, to your point, the right person in front of this thing, it doesn't really matter what it is,
absolutely.
it could be channel app because yeah, you can make fun of the phone apps, and a lot of us like to, but we use one of them occasionally, and it's pretty consistent. It's playing like it's throwing stuff up there that you're like, okay, this is kind of in line with what's going on here.
Yep.
And it's maybe
Well,
another
and it's
avenue for
funny, like how far the apps have come, even in 2 years. Like I don't know a group that doesn't use at least one.
yeah,
Even if it's just like, well, nothing else is going on, let's bring up this app.
yeah.
So
It's kind of like
they've come a long
almost
way.
the more things you got going on. Um, multiple sources, because if you can somehow get multiple sources to kind of show the same thing, you're on to something. That's kind of like
Yeah,
with me. It's like, okay, you've got an EVP of this. Is how many recorders did you have? Did you just do it on one? Okay, that's cool. That's compelling, maybe. But if you had multiple recorders and then maybe they were different models, and you also had video going and something that showed clearly multiple things happening that could support that, that's even more compelling to me. Because if you just got one thing, it's kind of like, could it be? Could it be? One of the classics, and I'm going to bring it up. It's just funny. We were at Middle Point. We were doing a session, had a DR60, which I have a love hate relationship with those recorders.
everybody does.
Not because of what people's evidence they get with it. It's more the science behind it I have trouble with. That the technology behind it doesn't make sense to me. It's a piece of shit recorder. Now, whether or not some people can argue that doesn't matter, maybe by it being a piece of shit is what allows spirits to come through it better. Okay. That's I'll give you that. That's possible. We talked about that briefly. But some of those recordings sound so much like garbage. It's like it could be anything. But one great one, we're all in this room, two DR60s going, we're at the school playing it back, and you hear this growl, and we're all like, whoa, all of us were like, what the hell was that? Played it, had two DR60s played on the other one, same kind of growl. And it was like this growl.
Yeah.
And we're like, all right, hold on. Everybody's here, nobody's breathing, nobody's moving on the floorboards, whatever. And it was cold, so we, it was that time of year.
Jenna, yes, Jenna.
What's she saying?
So she just sent me a very interesting text. That is so funny. She just asked me if Twix means anything to me, and
the candy.
No, I almost want to bring my son in here because Twix is like his thing for me because there's two. So every time he goes to the store to get himself something, he'll always bring back a Twix and give me one. It's kind of a little bonding thing that we've done since he was little. Because
that's adorable.
When they were really young, my my fee for checking their candy was their Twix and their Kit Kats.
Yeah, Jenna, I think Jenna's more Rolos. I'm a Twix person myself. But
I love Twix. But that's funny. Like, yeah, she said every time I hear you talk about your kids, I see a Twix, and I don't know why. That's why. That's wild. And it's funny because that's my oldest one, and he still does it. He's 17, and he still, when he goes to the store, he'll grab me a Twix. That's funny. I get one.
Huh. That's really cool. There you have it. There's so she made a connection to you, a remote connection. So yeah, so she's on here listening, but she texted
super
you.
Random too.
Yeah, that's funny.
Super random.
Oh, she picks up on stuff like that all the time. It's kind of weird. They seem like these really like weird things that are just out of nowhere, and then it's like, somehow they come back into play at some point. She's like, see,
as a reader, I think that is the hardest thing. It's like, go with your gut. Like, you have to say what's coming through. And it's like, do you know anything about a purple balloon? And they'll be like, oh yeah, a purple balloon was at my 5th birthday party and blah, 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 blah. Or, just this random stuff in your head. You're like, that makes no sense. I'm going to say this to this person and they're going to be like, you're insane. And then you say it and they're like, yeah, it's like the Twix. That's hilarious.
That's funny.
That is really funny.
That's your guys' secret handshake to know that you're in the same club, I guess.
Right on.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
Prove to me you got something. Well,
that's awesome. I love it when stuff like that happens.
That's funny. That's definitely her.
That's very cool.
Well, we've been on here for over 2 hours. This went quick. This is awesome. I know.
Yeah, I had so much fun.
This is cool because, like, usually I'm talking more on the technical side of stuff, and I told Jenna, I'm like, I don't know a lot about the psychic stuff and that. It's kind of like it's magic to me. I said I don't want to offend anybody, but I'm open minded as far as because I've seen some stuff, so it's like I'm not. Yeah, I'm open.
Dude, I'm unoffendable.
Well, you got to have thick skin in this, right? Because especially being the psychic medium thing, it's one thing to be someone like me that just carries around some cameras. I can take when somebody goes, "Dumbass, that picture's not real," or you were shaking the camera, or whatever the case may be, or whatever. But sorry, my dog's at my feet.
No, you're fine.
But yeah, I mean, yours is a lot more personal to where they're like, "Oh, you don't know what you're talking about," blah blah blah.
Oh, no, so and it's funny.
I talked to this psychic. This psychic said this, and then I came to you and you said this. So you guys are totally, why aren't you saying the same things?
Well, and it's funny because I get more of the like, oh, I had a session with this person and they said the same thing you did. And I'm like, well, then how many more people you need to hear from?
But it's not the answer I wanted.
Like, you're going to just keep paying people to get the same message. Stop
You
it.
get two, once you get two psychics to say the same thing, you pretty much just, yeah, go play the
Yeah, I feel
lottery.
like at that point, it really shouldn't matter what it is. You should just go with it.
Yeah, yeah, just accept what it is.
Yeah.
Well, let's like I said, I usually don't go more than a couple hours just because, well, shit, it's already, damn, it's past my bedtime. I'm getting old.
Ooh.
But just to let everybody know, we will be at Poasttown Elementary at Saturday the 16th. Jack will be there with Jenna and Scott Investigate, so we'll have a
Yep. Yep.
fun gang of people. So looking forward to that. This will be fun to have you do your thing there and see how that plays out. See what you can
I'm
pick up on,
excited.
and see what you and Jenna can do. Cause you guys are probably going to abandon me down in the basement or something. Because
Probably.
I'm gonna annoy her because whenever she tries to do EVPs, I come walking in the room going, I'm talking on the Facebook going, yeah, whatever, and
Nice.
you just ruined it. Why'd you do that for? I'm like, because our fans need to know what's going on.
I do it for the people.
The people have compelled me. We cannot let the people down.
Right.
Those people in these other countries that talk to, which is funny too, because if you've been on those, it's like you get not only people from our area, but it's like because some of these things go into late hours in the morning, and then it's really cool when you get people that like New Zealand and Australia and stuff are like, hey,
Oh,
I just tuned in. What's going on? What do we got going on here? And it's like, dude, we're about in the middle of this stuff. They're like, holy shit.
yeah.
Yeah, it's been a trip, but that's fun. What else we got to do, right? We just
Right.
it makes us happy.
Absolutely.
It's not for everybody, obviously,
Um,
but I feel like we got a good bunch of people that we hang around with, and I think everybody's
cool.
sincere, and
I'm
that's
excited to meet everybody.
yeah, that's the important part. But yeah, well, I will let you go. Thanks again for joining
All
us and
right.
being a part of this. It was awesome. Again, this is Jack Neece. She's a psychic medium. Is now your business is it Medium Magic? Is that what you're calling it? Or you got another one name now, right?
There's my psychic page that is Jack Neece Psychic Medium, and then there's Media Magic that we actually do have a business license for. That's the jewelry and
Okay.
the oils and the other stuff. So
Okay.
it's they're both the same thing. But you can
Just
get me either way.
like, share, all that good stuff,
Yes.
and then,
Yes.
and you've got an Etsy page as well. We'll have to get the link out
Yes.
there so
I
they can
do.
check out your stuff that's out there. I know Jenna's all into all that cool jewelry. I just got her. I actually went to Etsy for Christmas and bought her some jewelry that's themed like that. So I would
Nice.
assume that's probably going to be a pretty lucrative business for you because
I
I know
hope
there was a
so.
lot of
It's
stuff
doing
out there.
it's doing all
Awesome.
right. We've only been up for about a week, so
Well, I mean, it's you got to start somewhere.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm having fun doing it, so that's the
That's
important part.
that's the key right there. That's the key right there.
Yep.
All right, Andy, well, I will talk to you, and Jenna will talk to you. I guess Saturday. We'll see you Saturday.
All righty. We'll see you guys
Awesome.
then.
Take care. See everybody. Thank you. Take care.
Bye.